The agenda continues, and here we go. 17th of October 2022. We've got Russia and Iran unite to spread terror. This is what the Ministry of Defense was pushing out today. So let's see what they're saying. Russia is destroying Ukrainian homes with combat drones supplied by Iran. Iran is not, has not, and will not provide any weapon to be used in the Ukraine war, say the Iranians, and the Russians saying, it's Russian equipment with Russian nomenclature being used, but they're really pushing this as hard as they can, that Iran is supplying weapons to Russia, and therefore Iran plus Russia are terrorist states. And this narrative, I think, is particularly dangerous.
Yeah, and it's also incredibly hypocritical because this is the sort of stuff the West has been doing and NATO's been doing for years. What they're really frightened about is that Iran is now demonstrating it's got the technology and the capability to build this sort of equipment to such a standard that it can be used.
Yes.
So it's fear here that we've got other countries daring to stand up and say, we don't have to adhere to the rules that come out of the West and NATO.
So on Monday, we were talking about the Russian allegations that the Ukraine was planning to use a dirty bomb, and Britain's absolute claims that that was not the case. Russia is doubling down on this, in fact, and here's Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, and this is what he had to say. According to the official information, 2 organizations of Ukraine have been directly ordered to create the so-called dirty bomb. The works are at their concluding stage. Moreover, we have information about contacts between the Office of the President of Ukraine and representatives of the United Kingdom regarding the possible reception of technologies to create nuclear weapons. So this is now a direct allegation against the UK in particular. The Kiev regime plans to camouflage the explosion of this kind of ordnance under an extraordinary effective Russian low-power nuclear warhead that contains, this is a bad translation perhaps, but contains highly enriched uranium in its charge. The presence of radioactive isotopes in the air will be recorded by the sensors of the international monitoring system installed in Europe, with further accusation of the Russian Federation using tactical nuclear weapons. And he said that using the same methods employed in Khan Shaykhun, Syria in April 2017, as a pretext, the Americans launched that missile strike at the Sharat airbase. So he's highlighting the fact that this same methodology has been used by the West before without waiting for an investigation to begin, and all the more a decision of the UN Security Council grossly violating international law. So to summarize, he says Ukraine has got a motive to use a dirty bomb, as well as scientific, technical, and production capabilities to create it. And he said that Ukraine expects dirty bomb provocation to intimidate the population, increase the flow of refugees, and accuse the Russian Federation of nuclear terrorism. I think that if those accusations are true, that's really something that the UK needs to address.
Of course, Mike, but I don't think that the Russians are making this up. I'm pretty sure that they got to the point where they knew they had to speak out on it. Otherwise, they are going to be on the receiving end of this sort of subversion by the West. So they're calling it out up front, and this is going to put huge pressure on the US and the UK in particular to come clean.
Yeah.
But of course, we're not going to do that because everything that we've done in this war to date is dirty and basically hidden in the shadows, whether it's the support of special forces, or it's the types of weapons going in, or it's the surveillance units that are recording all of the signals intelligence, which is a huge support for the Ukrainians. But most of it, we're denying that we're actually doing these things.
Well, in the meantime, there seems to be a bit of a break politically going on. So in the United States, this letter has been sent to the president from 30 members of Congress. They're saying, we write with appreciation of your commitment to Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. So the same kind of rhetoric is in the letter, but here's the key point. In conclusion, we urge you to make vigorous diplomatic efforts in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire, engage in direct talks with Russia, explore prospects for a new European security arrangement acceptable to all parties that will allow for a sovereign and independent Ukraine, and in coordination with our Ukrainian partners, seek a rapid end to the conflict and reiterate this goal as America's chief priority. So that's 30 Democratic members of the Congress as well have signed that. And in the meantime, in Germany, not only this is Michael Kretschmer, who is we might call him Prime Minister of Saxon, and he's basically saying in this article in Bild, now we need a joint diplomatic effort by the EU, USA, China, India, and Japan. This war must be stopped. Again, he's using the usual rhetoric. There's not a single reason why Ukraine should give up even 1 square meter of its territory. War damage must be compensated by Russia. War criminals must be held accountable. But he then goes on to say, you have to go into peace talks with this attitude. We must no longer resolve these issues on the battlefield. Europe needs to put more pressure on peace talks. And so there are other German politicians speaking out on this and calling on Baerbock to actually force negotiations.
Yeah, and I think this is coming, Mike, because of course the West knows full well now that the Russian attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, and the last reports that I've seen is that they're talking now between 30 and 40% of Ukraine's electricity generating capacity has been destroyed. That is only going to increase. So very shortly, of course, Ukraine will cease to be able to function as a proper country. And it's only the billions of dollars that are being pumped in every month, principally by the Americans, that are keeping Ukraine functioning at all. So the Russians are not going to go away. They have successfully repulsed Ukrainian attacks, particularly in the Kherson area, and they have now dug themselves in. So things are not looking promising in any way for Ukraine at the moment.
Okay, and then just to finish this segment off,